What's up, everybody? I'm VPB Money Man. On this channel, I tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I tell people what they need to hear now. They're not going to like it, but in the future, you will thank me for it. So on this channel, we like to talk about a lot of different things. But before we do, and before we get into a video that Ben Felix made and I review his video, I know you're probably thinking, who the hell is this guy? He has no subscribers. But I'm a hardworking blue-collar person who built up a nice empire from the ground up, and it's not one size fits all when it comes to investing. And before we get into the video, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, turn your post notifications on. Think about giving me a thumbs up and subscribing if I say anything at any point that could relate to you or you like. Now, he put up a thumbnail, and this thumbnail could be very misleading for a lot of people. When it comes to these type of thumbnails, let's get into his video, and then we'll talk about it when I get back. Now, before we get into his clip, he actually says a lot of good things, but I need to clarify on some things that he says. Let's start the video.
With a 5% yield on cash, why would anyone want to invest in stocks and bonds? I know that cash feels good because its nominal value is stable, it feels safe, but it's counterintuitively extremely risky for long-term investors. Cash is a poor hedge against falling expected returns. It is historically much more likely to lose purchasing power than stocks and bonds in the long run, and real returns on stocks and bonds have historically been higher at higher levels of real interest rates, making cash a relatively poor long-term investment even when interest rates are high.
But here's the problem that I'm having with that, ladies and gentlemen. You can't judge the present and future by what happened in the past. A lot of great books, even A Random Walk Down Wall Street and Your Intelligent Investor, has said that even cash has outperformed the stock market in certain times and certain eras of history. What tends to happen is people think cash is trash. And I need to clarify on what he's saying where I feel differently. Where I feel differently is when you're waiting, or say you are just having some cash on the sidelines. We know that markets correct and we know markets crash. You don't want to pull it from an emergency fund, right? You don't want to sell items to jump into the stock market. What better way than to capitalize on corrections and market crashes than to have some money on the sidelines getting interest? Who cares if it's getting 5%, 4%, 3%, 2%, 1%, 0%? You want to be able to capitalize on a 20% downturn. Like the 2008 housing crisis, you wanted some money on the sidelines. Where would you have gotten the money from to put into the markets? This is why you got to take things with a grain of salt, because he is a financial planner and he works for financial companies. They have their own best interests at heart, but let's continue.
Ben Felix, portfolio manager at PWL Capital, and I'm going to tell you why cash is a terrible long-term investment. I want to be clear to start that this video is about money that you can direct toward long-term investments. Keeping cash set aside in an emergency fund is often a good idea, and that cash should not be kept in anything volatile since it's set aside to cover short-term needs. High-interest savings accounts, currently available to retail investors through high-interest savings account ETFs, are paying more than 5% in annual interest at this moment. When you can get a 5% yield on your cash, stocks and bonds might seem to lose some of their luster as long-term investments. It is well documented that investors' exposure to risky assets is sensitive to interest rates. When interest rates are lower, investors reach for yield in riskier assets, and when interest rates are higher, they reduce their exposure. Cash is safe day to day. When markets are volatile, cash, especially in a country like Canada, is going to be there when you need it.
Now, before we go any further, I want to say he's right when he means that people do jump out of the markets and they go for yield when the markets are volatile. But this is why you need to have a dollar cost average plan in place. So when the markets get volatile and the markets come down, you're DCAing. When the markets go up, you're DCAing. But there's nothing wrong with having a cash position on the side and building cash, putting extra cash that you get from bonuses on the side to capitalize on a market crash or a market correction. Now let's get into the rest of my video on why I feel that this video is not right for everybody. He is a financial guy, like he said, and financial people, let's be honest, they have their own best interests of where they think you should put the money. But let's get to my portion of the video. Now, he's a financial guy based in Canada. Nothing against Ben Felix. Let me clarify and be clear. I agree with a lot of the things that he says, but I disagree with some of the things he says. Now, remember, he is a financial guy. Financial asset managers hate when people sit on cash because they feel that they can invest it better for you and that they can get a better return. But for me, this is why I believe, and this is why I think sitting in cash for certain things works out for some people, and it could work out for you. Now, I agree with him. You need an emergency fund. Your emergency fund, you don't want to worry about your returns in your emergency fund. You don't want to chase yield when it comes to your emergency fund. You also don't want to keep it in your house because someone can break into your house can burn down, and there's your emergency fund. You want to keep it in a savings account somewhere. You forget about it. Who cares what the yield is? If the yield changes, you'll get the returns. If it goes down, you'll lose money over time and over inflation. But your emergency funds should be 3 to 6 months to a year, or even 2 years if you want to sleep way good or way better. I don't even know if that's the word way good, but if you want to sleep a lot better, and if it helps you sleep, keep whatever you want in your emergency fund. Now, emergency funds do not get touched under any circumstances. They're there to protect you for a job loss, a medical emergency. You destroy your car, you get into an accident, and you need a safety net to bail you out. But I like to keep money in a savings account. Now, this is different. This is not that, my dollar cost average into the markets, that stays the same. The only time I throw extra money into the markets, and I'm going to explain that to you. But why not keep a certain amount of money in a savings account and get some yield in 5%? Here's why. The markets will, because they have dropped 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. I get what he's saying. People think of market crashes and they think of the short term, but there's nothing wrong with keeping a separate set of cash on the side for when the market drops. You have a buying opportunity and you can buy at a discount. Now, this is separate from your emergency fund. This is separate from your dollar cost average. This is in a separate account that I like to keep linked to my brokerage institutions where, say the market drops 5%. You don't want to take from your emergency fund. A lot of people make that mistake. They take from their emergency fund, and then when an emergency happens, you got to sell out of the market, and now you're taking away from your future self. You could be getting hit with taxes. You could be selling at a loss. Your emergency fund is different from this. This is money for when and will, because it will happen when the market corrects or it drops 5% or 10%. Why not get some yield on that money? What I like to do when I come into a windfall meaning any type of bonus from my job or a tax return or anything like that, what I like to do is break it up into threes, actually fours. I like to break it up into fours. I like to put some into some savings. That's for the market, for when the market will drop. I like to throw a little bit of extra money into the market. I don't care where it's at, if it's up, if it's down. I don't even look. I just throw it in there. I top off my emergency savings, right? I top it off for if inflation eats a little bit at it. I top that off, and I enjoy a little piece of that money too, where I'll go out to dinner. That way I feel like I did something. I feel like I treated myself to something. Or if I have debt, ladies and gentlemen, you put that windfall to debt. What a lot of people tend to do is, and I've done this before, you don't set any money aside to capitalize on the market's downturns. Meaning, when a correction happens and the market drops 10, 15, 20%, you're taking from your emergency fund. You could be trying to work extra hours or selling stuff around the house to hop into the market to keep up with the FOMO. You don't want to do that. You want to keep an extra cash reserve on the side for wants. This is why people should capitalize on that 5%. Now, in long term, he says long-term cash, you will lose out. What's your definition of long-term? My definition of long-term is I always keep a separate amount of money on the side, because you never know when a real estate opportunity is going to happen. You never know when a stock market buying opportunity is going to happen. You never know if there's a new car upgrade you want. So there's nothing wrong with having a 5-year, 10-year, 15 cash, 20-year, a forever amount on the side. And if the interest rates are going to go up, it's a bonus. But your emergency fund, don't try to move that into this and then get extra yield and move it from this to that, because what tends to happen is while you're moving it around, you'll start to get more comfortable with yourself, and then you'll throw that into the market thinking you're always going to get this 5% yield when Jerome Powell lowers interest rates eventually, or whoever the chairman is. When they lower interest rates, you're going to lose yield. But if they raise it, you're going to get yield. Leave your emergency fund alone. Dollar cost average a set comfortable amount into the stock market, and you can have a savings account on the side for as long as you want, because only you know what you want to do with that money. It's not one size fits all. And if you're still here, if I gained, you as a subscriber, thank you so much. Think about giving me a thumbs up. Like, subscribe, turn your post notifications on. Thank you for joining the channel if you're still here. No regrets. Get it.